why are you not, achieving what we agreed? So they say, blah, this is the reason. Of course, from there we educate them, we work with them.
Compliance is not just a requirement, it's a dedication to service delivery. WASREB, celebrating 20 years of water services regulation.
And a very good evening to you. We hope that you are keeping well and you are just in time for Prime Edition on this day when the President has hinted at administration changes in the government on a day when protests actually failed to take off. The details of those stories and much more are coming up on Prime Edition, but first, here are the highlights. Nairobi, major cities and towns experience calm but slow business activity as dreaded Gen Z protests fail to take place as anticipated. Imminent and inevitable action. President Ruto hints at changes in his administration in line with prevailing realities in the country. And senators accuse CSs of mismanaging executive functions of the government, thereby exposing the president to ridicule. My name is Betty Kiptum and Brian Muraro is my colleague on the sign language interpretation. Now to our top story, President William Ruto has warned of imminent changes in his administration as he focuses on charting a new future for the country to align with the current realities. The president spoke in a cabinet meeting where security officers were commended for conducting themselves professionally in very difficult circumstances in protecting the country from anarchists. The cabinet saying those who acted outside the confines of the law to torch and loot and rob during the Finance Bill 2024 protests will be dealt with in accordance with legal structures.
In a cabinet meeting at State House, Nairobi, chaired by President William Ruto, the president noted that given the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024, the National Treasury is reorganizing the budget to accommodate the new reality, including cutting down on budgets. This even as he pointed out the need for significant changes in order to align with the future. According to the cabinet, the Finance Bill protests were infiltrated, hijacked and taken over by criminals and opportunistic political forces, leading to loss of life and destruction of property, calling for action to be taken against those liable. The cabinet further commended efforts by security officers in the protests, saying they acted professionally in difficult circumstances, protecting the country from anarchists. And any of those who acted outside the confines of the law will be dealt with in accordance with legal procedures. The cabinet noted criminals had rained terror on the people of Kenya in cities, towns and other urban centres, occasioning loss of life, destruction of national and county government buildings, infrastructure, vehicles and businesses. In the meeting, the cabinet was informed that due to the threats posed to Parliament, the Supreme Court and other critical infrastructure, all security agencies, including the military, were deployed to forestall the breakdown of law and order, and though the situation has now been stabilized and being monitored. The cabinet also discussed the implementation of the Kenya Urban Improvement Project in the Nairobi metropolitan area and approved the following bills. Kenya Secondary Education, Equity and Quality Improvement Program, Kenya United Arab Emirates Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, co-hosting of the second edition of the African Continental Free Trade Area Youth Symposium on September 5th to 7th, 2024. Public Finance Management Amendment Bill 2024 and ratification of bilateral air services agreements between Kenya and various countries including Somalia, Morocco, Algeria, Swaziland, Zimbabwe, Guinea, the United Kingdom and South Korea. Sarafina Robi for Prime Edition.
And senators have accused cabinet secretaries of mismanaging the executive functions of the Kenya Kwanza government. On their second day of debate on the state of the nation, senators said this situation has often left the president handling matters that ought to have been addressed by the CSs.
The cabinet secretaries found themselves on the receiving end on the second day of Senate's debate on the state of the nation, with Mandera Senator Ali Roba citing what he termed as an unpleasant personal experience.
But I have cabinet secretaries in this government that have tried to really look for, try to make phone calls to, not for personal issue, but issues affecting the public that have elected us into office to represent them.
The senators further accused the CSAs of dereliction of duty.
But the question is, who is managing the political government of President Ruto? Who is managing? If the cabinet secretaries do not understand their role, that everything must be done by the President of the Republic of Kenya, trivial issues that the President should not even speak to, issues that a cabinet secretary needs to attend to. What we have are cabinet secretaries that are working as CEOs of private entities. They talk to who they want, be in the office when they want.
The senators also called for the restructuring of the constituency development funds to have the money disbursed to schools directly instead of through members of National Assembly.
The finance bill was a catalyst. All this started when we decided to force on Kenyans a housing law. In fact, it's a good thing that those young people came to parliament, because we are the ones who passed a housing law and told the young people they can go to hell if they want. We are the ones who passed a health law, which nobody understands today. Mr. Speaker, those people who work for the National Health Insurance Fund, they have no certainty. They don't know whether they have a job. Leave alone a job, they don't even know whether they have a health cover. And yet they work for the National Health Insurance Fund. It was this parliament that brought about that kind of wickedness, that many of our people today do not have health cover.
So the big job that the National Assembly and the Senate should be doing is to do the big job of allowing our experts, whether in civil society, among the Gen Zs, to openly and transparently audit the budget items one by one for the executive, for parliament, for the judiciary, and put money where it is required.
They say the controversial Finance Bill 2024 only triggered public discontent that has been simmering over the state of affairs at Parliament. The American Embassy was also accused of silence on the killings witnessed in the protests.
Mr. Speaker, the Gen Zs are fighting about the neo-colonialism that we are seeing today. When Kenyans are complaining about their government, the first person to respond to us is the American ambassador in PowerPoint presentations, telling us how our elections are free and fair, telling us how our president has been sent from God, and telling us that we are making the right decisions, that we should persevere. Gen Zs are tired of that neo-colonialism and double standards.
The debate continues next week.
Now, normalcy returned to Nairobi's Central Business District as protesters kept off the anticipated Thursday anti-tax demos, allowing the reopening of businesses and the public transport sector for Kenyans. However, police were deployed at various points and key government installations, including the Parliament, the Supreme Court, and all entries leading to the State House. Giverson Minor reports.
It was business as usual in Nairobi's Central Business District on Thursday. Businesses including supermarkets, shops and clothing stores were reopened. This is after protesters kept off the anticipated anti-tax demos dubbed Occupy Nairobi CBD. The public transport sector also returned to normal, as well as the boda sector. However, security was beefed up in strategic points across the city center by the anti-riot police, who left nothing to chance. Critical government installations such as Parliament, Supreme Court and the Kenyatta International Convention Center were still under heavy security, with only staff members allowed access. Further, all roads leading to the State House remain heavily guarded by officers from the General Service Unit. Giverson Minor, Prime Edition.
To the port city of Mombasa, where normalcy is slowly returning after the mayhem was witnessed during the Tuesday anti-government protests. Some businesses remained open, with few others closed for fear of demonstrations and vandalism of property. Security was not left to chance, as the police patrolled both on foot and in police vehicles. Our reporter Ann Mburu kept an eye on the day-long situation and filed this report.
This was the situation in Mombasa Central Business District. Traffic was flowing and businesses remained open. There was heavy presence of police in supermarkets and government offices. Despite there being no demonstrations, most shops opened their doors halfway for fear of goons who kept threatening to break in and steal.
Tuna wasiwasi, mara tuwafungua, tuwafunga, ni hofu ya kuibiwa, yani waizi tu wamefanya kazi, yani kazi zimeharibika kabisa.
Sasa hakuna biashara, sisi tunakaa tu sasa hivi hapa tunaongoja maduka zetu hapa sasa hivi. Hata tuko na hapa hivi tuko na marungu sasa hivi, wakikija poa tu, kila mmoja tunaweka down. Kwa hivyo sisi hapa tu tunafanya biashara, sisi tunalinda maduka zetu, wakija sasa tunapambana nao.
The business community lamented on poor customer turnout, blaming it on the demonstrations witnessed a fortnight ago.
Hiyo biashara yetu leo ilikuwa chini sana. Hakuna kazi toka asubuhi, tunafungua mlango nusu mara tunasikia wamekuja, hawaji.
Sasa hii kazi ziko chini, hii maandamano yameaffect biashara kusema ukweli. Maana yake mambo hayaendi. Kazi ziko chini kabisa. The business community and human rights activists condemned what transpired during the protests and called on the government to heed to the Gen Z calls and find an amicable solution. Sasa tungeomba tu rais wetu ashuke chini kidogo, atusikize, turudi katika ile hali yetu ya kawaida na kazi ziendelee.
Pia tunasema tu ni asante kuwa rais ametusikiza, ndio maana utulivu umekuja, na tunaomba aendelee hivyo kusikiza Wakenya. Kusifanyike mambo kama haya siku nyingine. Kitu kizuri ni kuwa lazima watu wasikizane, waongee, na mambo kifanyika hivyo hakuwezi kuwa na maandamano tena.
Mtu yoyote atakayeleta shida katika mji huu, serikali ichukue hatua za kisheria, polisi lazima wajibike. Kwa hivyo Mombasa iko salama, na tunataka watu wakifanya maandamano wafanye maandamano ya amani, na mji kwa sasa iko shwari.
For Prime Edition from Mombasa County, I am Ann Mburu.
Kisumu City Thursday witnessed relative calm as normalcy returned to the lakeside city after a fortnight of protests championed by young people. The business community in the town is in the meantime appealing to elected leaders to address the youth, saying they have suffered imaginable losses in the last 2 weeks.
Kulingana na maandamano, tumeona leo at least iko mzuri, juu watu wajaandamana vile wanafanyanga kila siku.
Simon Amolo is a happy man today. After a fortnight of distrust and uncertainty that gripped the business community as a result of the anti-finance bill chaos, Simon can now welcome customers to his bookshop right within the Kisumu CBD.
Leo naona iko sawa, watu wanatembea, magari zinatembea, kila kitu inaendelea tu vizuri.
A similar feeling of relief and delight is shared by his counterparts in the matatu business such as Samuel Ojuka and James Ochieng, who are happy to return on the road despite low business.
Sisi wafanya biashara ama wafanyakazi wa basi wa Kisumu, tunaona maandamano ni kitu nalete kurudisha uchumi ya Kenya chini.
Tumekuwa tukienda hasara kabisa. Wengi wetu hawawezi hata kulipa loan, magari zetu ziko kwa finance, na unapata kila wakati unapata finance imeweza kuongezeka kwa asilimia fulani, ambapo inazidi sasa utafuta tena pesa nyingine ya kuongezea, lakini mapato imekuwa chini.
The decision by the protesters to keep off the streets on Thursday was allegedly informed by the trend of some criminal elements infiltrating the peaceful demos with the aim to steal, loot and destroy property.
Tuligundua kwamba wanasiasa wengine wanatumia vijana wengine kuleta vurugu katika kaunti yetu ya Kisumu. Ndio maana leo tumejiandaa kama wanajenzi tusingie maandamano.
Some citing heightened police surveillance and intelligence that could have deterred the protesters from venturing to the streets.
But this is not the end. We are still planning, but it will be peaceful demonstration.
However, both the youth and the business community continue to appeal to elected leaders to address the pressing issues facing the nation.
Waongee na vijana kwa sababu matakwa ya vijana wamesasikiza kwa mtandao vile vijana wanataka.
So we want the government to listen to us and do as, because we are the people who elected him there to work for us.
Juu tunataka Kenya iendelee. Hatutaki Kenya ya katili. Unaona? Hii ni Kenya na mwana Kenya anakuwa na right yake.
For Prime Edition from Kisumu County, I am Wycliffe Okech.
Muslim leaders have lauded the youth for restraining themselves from staging the scheduled Thursday protests to avoid mayhem caused by goons who had infiltrated their movement. The leaders are, however, calling on the Gen Z and millennials not to relent, but rather to re-strategize their push for good governance in the country. They further urged the head of state to rein in on police brutality.
The halting of the planned Thursday protest against the Finance Bill 2024 by the Generation Z and millennials in the wake of widespread crime witnessed in recent protests has earned praise from Muslim leaders.
What began as a perfectly legitimate protest against burdensome, unfair and unjust fiscal policy through the Finance Bill 2024 has catapulted into what is seemingly becoming a national crisis and an emergency.
The leaders, drawn from the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims and National Muslim Leaders Forum, among others, however, want the head of state to take immediate measures in a bid to reduce government expenditure and rid the administration off of corrupt government officials.
Trim down the size of your cabinet to 14. Rid your cabinet and government in general of those functionaries named in corruption, waste, fraud and abuse of public resources. Immediately reconstitute IEBC, undertake and facilitate the audit of our public debt, enabling public participation in an inclusive, transparent and accountable manner. Provide leadership for the prosecution of corrupt individuals at all levels of government. Kenyans need to see heads rolling.
We are saying that actually all these unconstitutional offices that have been set up, they should be dismantled immediately. We are saying that all those refurbishments of State House and other places which are not essential should be cut down. But what we are also saying is that the JSS, which is a very important section of education, cannot be cut down. Those teachers should be employed and money should be found for them.
While reiterating their commitment to supporting the young people in their quest for good governance, the leaders urge them to refrain from any acts of violence that may lead to further destruction of property, injuries or loss of lives.
Endless protest cannot be an end in itself. Rather, it is a means to a well-defined end which must be realistic, achievable, and within confines of the law.
Na institution zao na jamii yao wako tayari kuwapa maelezo, maagizo na advice kwa hao vijana wetu whenever wanahitajia.
The leaders finally pledged to continue opening the places of worship to young people who come seeking refuge, aid or counsel. Reporting for Prime Edition.
An update on crime now. Police have arrested suspects and recovered several goods stolen from Chieni supermarkets in Nyeri and Laikipia counties. In a statement, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations said that among the goods recovered included washing machines, refrigerators, water dispensers, bicycles, kitchenware, food items and clothes.
The Directorate of Criminal Investigations has paraded some of the suspects who took advantage of the anti-taxation protests to loot the Chieni supermarket. In a moment of rage, the suspects made away with an array of items, among them electronics and kitchenware. Police said that the hunt is on for more suspects.
Meanwhile, residents of Rwanyange village in Imenti North Constituency, Meru County, have held protests demanding the immediate removal of the head teacher of Rwanyange Primary School following the death of a grade 7 pupil at the school. The residents allege that the pupil had been sent to draw water when he fell into a water tank and died. They want the government to transfer the head teacher on suspicion of mismanagement of the school.
Tungu mwingi kutoka jana kwa sababu ya mtoto wetu alikufia kwa hii tanki. Na akikufa, mwalimu mkuu alikuwa hapa anaitwa Kivenji. Ni yeye alimwambia kweli aende kwa hiyo tanki, unaona, atotee wanafunzi wengine maji. Ina pesa mingi ya kutengeneza mahali ilivunjika, lakini hakuna pesa ya kuweka kwa tanki, lakini anaona pesa ya kukula yeye mwenyewe.
Elsewhere, police in Kirinyaga County are investigating the death of a man whose charred remains were found inside a burnt house in Mburi village in Gichugu. Neighbors and family members say the deceased was found dead near the door trying to escape the inferno. They suspect that the door may have been locked from outside.
Sababu tukiangalia hii nyumba hata kama ilichomeka, tunashuku. Kwa sababu tunaona mahali Nyaga alikuwa ameanguka ni kwa mlango. Na hapo kwa mlango alikuwa na nyundo. So ni kama mtu ambaye alilala usiku na mwingine akafunga nje, hii mambo ikafanyika.
Finally, police in Kakamega County are investigating the death of a man in Ebwambwa village. Residents say Nicholas Onyango, who operates a boda-boda business in the area, was attacked and killed by villagers on suspicion of being part of a gang that has been raining terror in the region. Residents say the deceased and his colleagues had attempted to kidnap a middle-aged man from his home before the tables turned.
Hawa jamaa wakawafamia hapo, wakaanza kuwalazimisha kukalisha kwa pikipiki waende nao. Sasa ndio hawa watoto wakaanza kupika nduru, wananchi wakatoka kwa wingi na wakaanza kutoroka. Kwa mapikipiki walitoroka na huyu alikuwa ndio mkubwa yao, akatoroka kwa mikoa akatuacha sisi, akatoka mbio. Sasa baadaye ndio tukaanza kurudi, nikija na hatimini kwa boma, tujaribu tuende polisi. Tukapata damu, tukasonga, tukaona damu, ndio tukafikia mahali alikuwa hako.
For Prime Edition, I'm Christine Matunda.
To the corridors of justice now, the High Court has upheld a 2.6 billion shillings fine and a 14-year jail term for former NSSF investment manager Francis Muturi in connection with the 1.2 billion shilling loss at the pension fund. Justice Nixon Sifuna, reviewing the evidence, determined that Muturi's actions led to the significant financial loss experienced by the NSSF. Ruth Wamboi reports.
In 2022, the then Chief Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi found Muturi and 3 DSL directors guilty of causing the 1.2 billion loss. Fast forward, Mugambi, now a judge, imposed a 14-year prison sentence on Muturi with a sentence on a 2.6 billion fine. Additionally, the DSL officials David Githaiga, Wilfred Oweru and Isaac Nyamong were each fined 802,000 shillings on the availability of funds from the sales of its assets.
And the one who promoted the said scheme by this, he bears the highest responsibility at the fund.
However, disastrous with the verdict, Muturi and the other parties appealed. Alas, Wednesday, 3rd July 2024, Justice Sifuna upheld the conviction and sentences, emphasizing the need for accountability in the handling of public funds.
It has also been argued in this appeal that this case took over 10 years and that for that reason it was a miscarriage. There was a miscarriage of justice.
Sifuna noted that Muturi issued 41 memos to the NSSF managing trustees containing inaccurate statements about shares purchases allegedly made by DSL on behalf of the NSSF, which never occurred.
In reaching a determination, I have carefully analyzed not only the petition, the charge, together with the evidence on record comprised in the right of prosecution and and defense testimonies in the trial court.
Justice Sifuna that Muturi's criminal liability stemmed from his involvement in the scheme and his role as the investment manager. According to the constitutional judgment by Justice Nixon Sifuna, Muturi and his co-accused will have to pay a fine of 2.6 billion shillings or spend 14 years in jail for the offenses they committed to the country. Ruth Wamboi reporting for Prime Edition from Milimani Locals.
And Ruth Wamboi's story there brings us to our first break here on Prime Edition. Remember, we shall be having a conversation later in the bulletin about the impact of the protests on the tourism sector. Do stand by for that and so much more. Let's take that quick break.
Asanteni sana kwa kuwezesha Loto Moto kuwafikia wengi wasiojiweza kupitia star 570#. Hapo umewafuta wengi machozi, umewaelimisha, umewapa makao, umewapa lishe na umewapa matibabu kwa namna tofauti. Asanteni.
Asanteni. Asanteni sana.
Na kwako wewe mchezaji wa Loto Moto, unajipa fursa ya kujishindia Probox nayo. Na kama Probox haikufai na umejishindia, tunakupa taslim 750,000 Kenyan shillings na mshindi na mtangaza 30th of June. Na mwezi wa July 28th na mtangaza mshindi wa Demio nayo. Na kama utaki na umeshinda, wacha gari, chukua chapa 750,000 Kenyan shillings kwenye star 570#. Wewe si mshindi tu, wewe ni tegemeo kubwa. Tusaidie na tushinde.
Unajua, token mita yako inahitaji system update. Ni rahisi na ni free. Ukipata ujumbe kutoka Kenya Power, yani SMS, weka kodi ya kwanza kureset, alafu weke kodi ya pili kuupdate ili token mita yako iendelee kufanya kazi kama kawaida. Update token mita yako. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwako na Kenya Power and Lighting Company.
Differently. It is about our skills, it is about our presence, it is about having an inclusive environment.
It's about recognizing the dignity. Each person has full dignity, irrespective of their situation, physical, educational, knowledge, whatever may be their condition.
Everyone has a unique contribution to make, and that together we should build a world where every ability is recognized and valued. 'Cause we're differently abled.
Welcome back. You are watching Prime Edition. Let's now make sense of the numbers. Private garbage collectors have 4 days to comply with the National Environment Management Authority's directive to fully transition to biodegradable garbage bags, a move they argue is untenable and want the deadline pushed. Under their umbrella body, Waste and Environment Management Association, the garbage collectors cite delays in testing and certification of alternative bags, higher cost of sourcing certified biodegradable bags, and material recovery facilities as the challenges they face.
Kenya banned the manufacture, importation and use of plastic carrier bags and flat bags used for commercial and household packaging, including garbage bags and bin liners, in 2017 via a Gazette notice number 2334 and 2356. This was revised on the 8th of April 2024 when the National Environment Management Authority directed that within 90 days all organic waste generated by households, private and public sector, religious institutions and from private and public events be segregated and placed in 100% biodegradable garbage bags.
The bag is taking 6 months to biodegrade. So definitely we are going back to the landfill, which means if these members alone take their waste for today and each truck has maybe like 10,000 bags, So by the time today's waste is degrades, the bags degrade, it will be in December.
With 4 days to go, private garbage collectors are urging the National Environment Management Authority to reconsider the directive and offer more time to allow for adequate testing, certification, and multi-sectoral engagement.
When we buy bags from the manufacturer, we give them to our clients, and on collection, when we take them to the dump site, we have employed women who take the bags, clean them, and we take them back to the manufacturer for recycling. And that is why we are saying jobs will be lost, because there are hundreds and thousands of women at the dump sites who are doing this.
Garbage collectors under their umbrella body Waste and Environment Management Association said the ban on non-biodegradable bags threatens significant jobs for those involved in collecting the waste, recycling, among others. The 3-month period indicated in the notice lapses on the 8th of this month, and according to NEMA, the use of conventional plastic bags and bin liners for collection of organic waste shall thus cease.
We really urge them to promote local manufacturing of these bags so that we can give them to our clients at an affordable rate.
NEMA has also directed that all county governments and licensed private service providers provide their clients with 100% biodegradable garbage bags. Regina Manyara reporting for Prime Edition.
And the rollout of 6 centers for entrepreneurship is set to begin later this month in 6 satellite centers. The initiative, which is a partnership between Kenya and Germany, will offer business skills to small and medium enterprises. Trade Principal Secretary Alfred Kombudo has further said the government will re-engage and complete trade partnerships with the United States to offer ready markets for small businesses.
Has an estimated 1.5 million formally registered micro, small and medium enterprises and over 5 million informal MSMEs. The sector collectively contributes 30% to Kenya's annual wealth, while employing 9 out of 10 people in Kenya. Majority of these small businesses are in the wholesale and retail trade, manufacturing and food services. To help access more markets, the government plans to connect them to the international markets.
And what we have been doing is to ensure that we are able to have more get into the market, but more with value addition locally and into markets that basically pay us a premium.
There's new avenues to revitalize the sector through various trade partnerships.
We need trade agreements with various countries that will allow us to get our products into their markets. And the contribution, working very closely with agriculture, working very closely with MSMEs and other departments, we just 3 days ago started implementation of the economic partnership agreement between Kenya and the European Union.
SMEs Development Principal Secretary Susan Mangeni says MSMEs in Kenya face the challenge of ready markets and credit availability.
They lack access to affordable credit because of the collateral. And this is the reason why we have intervened with the Hustler Fund. So that now Hustler Fund credit score replaces the conventional collateral, the title, this, the word that the banks have been looking for.
MSMEs in the country are still dealing with a lack of proper skills, necessary tools, resources, and knowledge of local and international markets.
So the kind of capacity building also that you're going to do in that space is a targeted kind of capacity building where we become more intentional at mobilizing, rallying them, and ensuring that we identify the skill gaps and upskilling them through these opportunities.
Alan Auko, Prime Edition.
The Agricultural Finance Corporation is set to undergo major reforms in a bid to accelerate funding to youth and small enterprises. Agriculture Principal Secretary Paul Rono says collateral requirement has left many young people out of the credit market. The PS says due to collateral requirements, the youth are yet to tap into the 2.2 billion shillings credit facility advanced to AFC for onward lending to farmers by the government.
Speaking to Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, the Agriculture Principal Secretary, Paul Rono, has said more than 10,000 youths are said to be onboarded into the agriculture value chain through the Agritech initiative. Rono says under the program, the youths will be advanced cheap credit by the Agriculture Finance Corporation to fully invest in 6 key value chains that the government has earmarked to expand the agriculture sector. The value chains include dairy, leather processing, among others.
And listen to the youth in the way they want these programs to be run in terms of loans. They don't want a loan which takes a very long time. They also don't want sort of to be, as old people like to over guiding. But they have different initiatives on their approaches. A youth can say, I'm in agriculture, but my work is to market. I can develop the products and market. I'm in agriculture, my work is a lawyer.
The government is also encouraging farmers to form cooperative societies to access markets and enjoy economies of scale.
Who are telling us, even if you have a problem on market, we can do it on next basis. They can really create those TikTok communication for a product like tea or coffee, and they are able to get markets outside.
Farmers and investors have also been encouraged to onboard their produce on the commodity exchanges to access markets for their produce as part of agriculture digitization.
So maybe in a few hours I'll ask the CEO to basically put out the fresh onboarding form, and I'd like to encourage as many young people as possible to get onto this. The second thing is that on the same platform, we have now done a call for potential subscribers, people who want to basically take out shares in this, to be able to do so.
To expand production of key commodities in the country, the government has kicked off plans to rehabilitate and expand various irrigation schemes in the arid and semi-arid areas as production in key 14 regions start to decrease. Benson Rioba reporting for Prime Edition.
Kenya has rolled out an initiative that will see Kenyans living in the diaspora play a bigger role in marketing the country as a tourist destination. Kenya Tourism Board CEO June Chepkemei says the agency is working with private sector players such as hotels, airlines and tour operators to incentivize Kenyans living in the diaspora to actively lure tourists to Kenya. Chepkemei says under the initiative, Kenya's embassies will act as coordinating bodies.
Kenya has traditionally been leveraging travel expos, digital platforms and partnerships with travel and hospitality players to market the country as a tourist destination. However, this has not yielded optimal results. This has prompted the Kenya Tourism Board to come up with a new way of marketing the country by involving Kenyans living in the diaspora.
We've already conceptualized a diaspora campaign. We are calling it One Kenyan in Diaspora, One Tourist. We are working with the State Department of Diaspora and all our embassies abroad to get Kenyans to be our agents so that they are able to promote Kenya out there. We've gotten trade partners who are then able to be the fulfillment partners.
Chepkemei says those involved under the initiative will be offered incentives by participating in travel and hospitality industry players such as airlines and hotels. She says Kenyans in the diaspora who will be involved in marketing Kenya to tourists will be trained.
The reason we are here this morning is to begin the journey with the partners here in Kenya to really start reaching out and inviting the world to come to Kenya. Because what this does is that it then enables us to have partners out there that can support us to market Kenya.
She was speaking during the launch of the Magical Kenya Travel Expo that will be held in October this year. Kenya targets to host 5,000 tourism industry players and representatives drawn from at least 30 countries.
We are ready to welcome the visitors, and we are delivering on the promise that Magical Kenya is open and ready for business.
Let us team up as we prepare to welcome the guests, who we expect to be about over 5,000. That will be coming to our country. That will be a very good opportunity to promote even business in our country, to promote the economy and so on.
They say the 12-month tourism strategy dubbed One Diaspora, One Tourist seeks to leverage on the diaspora community as low-hanging fruits in repositioning Kenya. Nduta Mokami for Prime Edition.
And now to our weekly segment called Young and Industrious. In a call to try out self-employment and alternative methods of animal feed, Susan Kamau, aged 22, has unveiled the little-known benefits of cactus, which thrives in harsh climatic conditions. She is the founder and owner of Elite Beauty, which extracts oil from cactus and uses the byproduct for animal feeds, thus supporting local agriculture and land transformation in arid and semi-arid areas. Our reporter Anne Mwendwa visited this young entrepreneur and filed the following feature for tonight's edition of The Young and Industrious.
About 4 years ago in high school, Susan Kamau started wondering why her family was struggling despite owning huge and bare pieces of land in Kitale and West Pokot. This ignited her research on how land could be utilized, and later found out that planting cactus and putting it into use would be the best solution since it thrives in such environment.
There was a lot of land, but we were not using it. So that bugged me, and I was asking myself, like, how can I make use of this land at the end of the day? So that's how I finished my diploma and just started researching. My project was also focusing on just researching which crops can grow in arid and semi-arid areas, and I landed to cactus.
And she came with that idea. I was like, yeah, that's a very good idea, and it can help with animal feed. And also people can plant them there because it doesn't really need a lot of water.
On learning more about the resilient plant and its little known use in making oil, Susan, together with her team, saw a great business opportunity that later gave birth to a light beauty in September 2023.
So as to fund our end goal of now desertificating the 68% of Kenya into now becoming a planting and profitable area is where now the oil business and the animal feed business came into.
Susan buys cactus from farmers in Kajiado, Kitale, Kitui and West Pokot. She says her interaction with people facilitates a huge connection of suppliers.
So you find that there's someone who has cactus at their place. So after that, I take their contact, and when I need the order, now I share with them some photos of the type of cactus I would want.
After receiving the cactus parcel, Susan unpacks and sorts out the raw material to pick the required thick, spineless, old and soft spine species, since the farmers are unaware of the specific one to be used. She points this as one of the challenges. As the owner of the business, Susan takes full responsibility of the extraction process, being careful every single step as one small mistake messes up the whole process.
So what end up with your preservative?
The final product is the oil that differs with the making method, color, ingredients and usage. According to Susan, the natural cactus oil is best for hair growth, while the solid one is for the body nourishment. The green part, being sensitive to human skin, is used to make the animal feed together with other byproducts. Susan adds that coming up with the right ingredients for a first oil was not a walk in the park. This, however, did not discourage her, but kept on trying, and the products improved with time. No doubt, the current ones are smoothie and creamy. We tasted it.
It's just starting. That was one thing I will say. You can see, like, I was able to show you the journey of our first product where it had molds and everything was wrong. I showed you the second product where it was a bit stony and was not good. So it's you start and you learn from your mistake every time, and then you communicate. Like, I have learned the power of communication.
Besides Elite, Susan works with Powerland Project, where she plays the managerial part in reaching 1 million developers and engaging youths in innovative practices.
Over the last 2 years that we have been at Powerland Project, we have been able to get 15,000 software developers to graduate. So currently we are in our new cohort, which has 9,000 people, and we are aiming to deliver another 15,000 this year.
Susan is working with her team to introduce digital platform enhanced by artificial intelligence that will see more sales.
We're trying to develop a platform that will help us be different on the products we sell by using AI. For example, someone can take a picture of themselves, their face, and then we can recommend the product they will use for what you manufacture.
Having seen her business thrive from a humble beginning, Susan encourages other youths to embrace their ambitions, network, and be optimistic. In realizing that time quickly fleets away, Susan says consistency has been the cornerstone of her entrepreneurial journey, a challenge you too can take up as early as now. Anne Mwendwa, reporting for KBC Channel 1, Kabete, Kiambu County.
I love that. Susan says just start and keep learning from your mistakes. We move on to magical scenes now, where Mount Kenya offers a unique and challenging but conducive environment for team building activities. The rugged terrain and unpredictable weather conditions provide the perfect setting for groups to work together, overcome obstacles and build trust and friendship. Tonight on Magical Scenes, we shift focus to Nanyuki, Laikipia County.
Team building on the foot of Mount Kenya is arguably a transformative experience.
3, 4.
The physical and mental challenges of climbing the mountain push individuals out of their comfort zones and help them discover their strengths and weaknesses. This is Mount Kenya, the highest mountain in Kenya with 3 peaks: Betian at 5,199 meters, Nelion at 5,188 meters, and Point Lenana at 4,985 meters. The mountain has its beauty. Mount Kenya provides an opportunity for personal growth and character development for visitors, mostly tourists traveling in groups. Rope course and zip lining are a few of adventure to explore while en route to a summit through the Ceremon route. Betian Summit is the most recommended to starters of mountain climbing, perhaps due to the minimal challenges you may encounter to its peak. The flora and fauna at Mount Kenya dot the trekking routes to the summit. The sense of accomplishment that comes from reaching a summit would boost self-confidence and resilience, while the stunning views and peaceful surroundings would inspire reflection and introspection. From rock climbing and abseiling to camping, Mount Kenya offers a wide range of activities that can help teams bond, communicate effectively, and develop leadership skills.
Yes, there is fun in it, but it's a challenge. You get tired, you get exhausted. You feel like you can't make it, but when you are slowly push yourself, and that's the kind of thing which we are talking about, is to realize that you got more resources within us, whether young or old, than what we actually take for granted. And those are things which finally now empower the young person to be able to look inwards and realize that they have got strengths and they don't have to look outwards for them to be empowered.
Wanalia tu, lakini bado unamwambia unaweza, twende tu, tunasonga mbele. Unapoona analemewa kidogo, unamwambia pumua kidogo, alafu tutaenda. Unamwambia hata kama ni hatua moja, piga moja tu, sababu ukipiga hata hatua moja, hata safari ya kilomita 1000 inaanza kwa na hatua moja tu.
Irene Mchuma Udim, Magical Things in Nanyuki, the county of Laikipia.
Asanteni sana kwa kuwezesha Lotomoto kuwafikia wengi wasiojiweza kupitia star 570 hash. Hapa umewafuta wengi machozi, umewaelimisha, umewapa makao, umewapa lishe na umewapa matibabu kwa namna tofauti. Asanteni.
Asanteni. Asanteni sana.
Na kwako wewe mchezaji wa Lotomoto, unajipa fursa ya kujishindia Probox nayo. Na kama Probox haikufai na umejishindia, tunakupa taslim 750,000 Kenyan shillings na mshindi na mtangaza 30th of June. Na mwezi wa July 28th na mtangaza mshindi wa Demio nayo. Na kama utaki na umeshinda, wacha gari, chukua chapa 750,000 Kenyan shillings kwenye star 570 hash. Wewe si mshindi tu, wewe ni tegemeo kubwa. Tusaidie na tushinde.
Help this honorable court. Are you single or married?
That has nothing to do with this case.
No. We are starting somewhere. Na mama alikuja kwako akakwambia nimemkataa, mtafuta njia kunimaliza, si ndio?
Abana kitu kama namna hiyo.
Wewe nakuuliza,
Yes.
kila
Not my type.
mwanamke ama msichana akija kwako tu wewe anakutaka.
Yani I'm just like a magnet.
Mtu hawezi
I just attract them. Walichukua na Jasmine Juma leni.
Kwa nini?
Amekuja hapa mahakama akasema vile mnapendana.
Of course, why not? Si hata mimi tunapendana hata na huyo na mtu yoyote anybody can like.
We are talking about love here.
Amesema wapi? Wewe toka.
Wewe ondoka.
Lakini wewe unaishi wapi?
Welcome back. Kenyans should embrace locally made products to strengthen the manufacturing sector and help sustain local jobs. These emerged in Mombasa during the launch of the Changamka Kenya Shopping Festival, a platform aimed at promoting high-quality locally made goods through discounts and exhibitions. Mombasa Governor Abdul Swamad Nasir has urged local businesses to take advantage of the festival to showcase their products.
And we are quite excited with this journey we've taken in making sure we celebrate the innovation that comes from our people, the people of Kenya, in how they make products, the manufacturing sector growth, and eventually how we create awareness of the unique products that are made here in Kenya and can also be exported in the rest of the world.
This approach ensures that the benefit of economic development are felt throughout the country, not just in major urban centers.
We now want to do this in a very, very directed approach by going through the labor market analysis and now, based on that, give an advisory to the young people that this is where you most likely will be able to get a job if you study, and the county government of Mombasa takes over.
How do I say it in this way?
Across borders now, South Africa's Shoprite Group has introduced an innovative digital solution for its cash and carry stores, marking the wholesale brand's first venture into e-commerce. These will enable customers to shop for more than 10,000 larger hyper products with same-day delivery scheduled within a 60-minute time slot. Here are the details of these and other stories making headlines across Africa.
This move comes hot on the heels of Amazon's launch in South Africa in bringing a stiff competition in the fast-growing e-commerce retail sector. In order to overcome challenges like high transportation and fuel costs and difficulties in meeting demand within the informal sector, the largest grocery retail group said bulk buying customers can now browse and purchase a wide range of goods at highly competitive prices through a fully automated online shopping system with free delivery within a 50-kilometer radius. Meanwhile, prices of basic commodities in both the formal and informal sector have stabilized due to the tight monetary policy stance that was implemented by the Central Bank of Zimbabwe, causing inflation rates to be stable. The ZiG currency slightly appreciated in value by 0.51% against the US dollar during the period under review, with a tight monetary stance resulting in exchange rate stability of basic commodities on the market. A good example is sugar, which has relatively improved countrywide, and its price has remained stable during the months of May and June 2024. Finally, in Malawi, investors in rare earth mine in Balaka Lindiana Resources Limited have announced plans to start constructing the mine this year, with the maiden shipment to China set for the first quarter of 2026. From the operations, the Malawi government will earn $5.56 million in royalties on top of income tax and other taxes from the rare earth mineral types. Mining experts further say the rare earth industry presents a huge opportunity to the economy as the world transitions to renewable energy and energy-efficient technologies. Lorraine Chepchirchir for Prime Edition.
And now we want to get into an interactive session here on Prime Edition to talk about just what the impact of the protests that have been going on for the past 3 weeks or so had on the tourism sector. We know that some events have been cancelled, others postponed, and how are hotels and catering companies just dealing with the new reality? To talk about this is Mike Macharia, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Betty.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
Let's just start right there. The protests that have been ongoing. We've seen some cancellations. What have your members experienced?
The truth of the matter, Betty, is that the cancellations have been minimal.
Okay.
We had trouble last Tuesday last week, and the day before yesterday. Before that, the protests were fairly peaceful. But even when we had the trouble, we usually activate what is known as a crisis operating procedure, where we put our people in various places to monitor the situation. And we are able to get both our staff and tourists safe passage, even in trouble spots. So when the first signs of violence broke out the week before, we had requests for cancellations. But what we did is we simply asked the people to reschedule their bookings, and a good number were able to. So generally the impact is very, very low.
We saw the CS of tourism telling people, you know, do not cancel your travels, Kenya is safe. Yeah. We also saw the Prime Cabinet Secretary release a statement to embassies and consulars saying that Kenya is safe.
Yes.
So when it comes to tourism, it's a very delicate sector in terms of brand and perception. What is the impact of such unrest, so to say, even if it's a one-day affair or two-day affair to the industry?
Usually, tourism, yes, depends a lot on the macro environment. So anything happening at a macro level can affect tourism. It could be highland malaria. It could be the floods that we had a few months ago. It could be an incident outside of Kenya, for example, like we had with the hurricanes off the coast of the US. it does affect. So what we need at that point in time is information. We need as much facts as possible on the ground, and we need to communicate that to our people, particularly the source markets, immediately. And this is what we did last week. We sent out a statement on Wednesday. On Tuesday, the day before yesterday, we sent another statement at night, and this recovered quite a number of bookings that had been, where the apprehension was within the markets. But yes, a lot of macro issues can affect us. But I think over the years, since the Kaya Bombo clashes of 97, coming into elections in 2008, and COVID, which was a really, really big one, I think we've, as an industry, sort of like perfected the act of recovery in terms of crisis. And we see that our industry is very resilient. It picks up very quickly, even when there is apprehension. As soon as things are sorted out, it picks up. It helps, like you say, to get an official government statement. The Prime Cabinet Secretary sent one out. I think the Cabinet Secretary for Interior sent out another one. The Kenya Tourism Board also beefed up our statement. And of course, yesterday when CS Mutua sent out that press release and did the press conference, it helps to recover these bookings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As you've mentioned, the sector is very resilient. I mean, we are yet to get to our pre-COVID numbers, but the sector has been trying very hard to recover.
Yes.
What would you say the industry is doing to keep up the momentum?
From the industry perspective, the partnership with government, particularly with the Kenya Tourism Board, is very, very important. We need to get that going. We need a lot more money allocated to KTB, which is a bit of a chicken and egg now that we don't have the finance bill of the Finance Act of 2024, which was proposing additional funds for marketing and promotion. But when you look at what we usually ask for in terms of marketing against the total budget, we are still confident that it can be maintained even under the old Act of 2023. So it's important that the Tourism Board is facilitated to enable it to conduct the marketing that it needs to do. There are other issues that are policy by nature, and one of those is access into the country. The last time we were here after COVID, we were talking about air access into the country. And what we were requesting government to do at that point is to just return the flights, the frequencies that we had before COVID. And some of those frequencies have come back. Some of them haven't come back. We are still yet to see Turkish Airlines back into Mombasa. We are yet to see Qatar Airlines, even though we have new airlines that have come in under new bilateral service agreements. I think we have Indigo from India. We have Fly Dubai directly from Dubai. And now we have Air Asia. And we've seen Brussels Airlines coming back in the month of June. And we are grateful. But we still need to have a little bit more of air access, because that's I mean, it's a main, because we are a long-haul destination. It is a main routing for clients to get here if they're not coming from the region. And even when they're coming from the region, if you look at our markets, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, DR Congo, Ethiopia, growing, they still need air access into Kenya. So that's an area that is of utmost importance. It's a low-hanging fruit because it doesn't require huge investments. All you need is a policy direction. The second one, now to get to the numbers that we want, we've been talking about a convention center, either in Nairobi or in Mombasa. We had a discussion last week with the governor of Kwale, and she asked us, why do you speak about conventions only in Nairobi and Mombasa? We also need a convention center in Kwale. But we can start in Nairobi because there's places that had been earmarked for development. Bomas of Kenya, for example. If we could get a proper, huge conference center, of course with the requisite infrastructure around it, and then of course now combine that with air access. The other area I saw KTB talking about diaspora and diasporans. We had our 20th annual symposium just last week, and we invited some speakers, and fortunately one of them was from Uganda, one from the Netherlands, and two from the US. And one of them from the US told us that there is a market that we haven't tapped in. He was an African-American professor, and he says, look, you still have an opportunity to attract the African-American market because the Americans that we see coming into the country are not from that particular grouping. So there's a lot that we can do to quicken the numbers, the achievement of the numbers that we aspire to reach.
Right. Clearly, there's a lot to be done, and there are quite some opportunities there.
Yes.
You mentioned the issue of aviation, and aside from the airlines coming in, there's the issue of our very own infrastructure here. We have seen in the recent past a number of issues at JKIA, and the government has been working to rectify that. But what does it do, especially for frequent travelers who go elsewhere and find better infrastructure and they come here? Do you think this chases away repeat visitors?
We had some years back planned to expand the international airport, Jomo Kenyatta. You remember the Greenfields project that was put on hold under the previous regime. Jomo Kenyatta, as it is, can handle a number of passengers. But when you look at the frequencies and the arrival times and departure times of most international flights, they all seem to be concentrated within a certain period of time in the evening. And maybe we could look at, within our bilateral service agreements, we could look at some airlines arriving in the low peak areas, because for a large period of time during the day, nothing happens generally at Jomo Kenyatta. But go there from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., it's a beehive of activity. We had also mooted the idea of using other airports. Mombasa is ready, is an international airport ready, not utilized to the full capacity. I think only about 3 or 4 international airlines land there scheduled, as opposed to in addition to the charters. Kisumu, again, you arrive at Kisumu, you have immigration counters. All that is needed in Kisumu from a technical point of view, we are told, is just to increase the thickness of the runway in terms of the bitumen, so that it can land wider body aircraft. And we have an airport in Isiolo that is underutilized. Eldoret is just doing cargo for the time being. And we've talked about Malindi Airport for a long time, being able to also bring in international visitors. But to give credit where it's due, the Kenya Airports Authority have tried very much, because they have to look after all the major airports. They also have to look at all the airstrips, and some of these airstrips are service airstrips. Some of them are medical, and some of them are touristic in nature. We asked them to extend the runway in Diani, the old Dukunda airstrip, and it was done. We are now landing Dash 8 aircraft at full capacity because of the 200-meter extension. So step by step, we are getting there. But what we could do is utilize the existing infrastructure better, so that you're not having everybody coming into Jomo Kenyatta while Kisumu is idle with just local airlines. Yet, if you're taking a safari from Kisumu to Masai Mara, It's less travel time. It's about 4 hours to get to Mara from Kisumu, and it is about 5 to 6 hours driving from Nairobi.
So is the traffic that is concentrated at JKIA?
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of still on infrastructure, away from the aviation infrastructure, there is the roads that lead us to facilities.
Yes.
How is the condition right now?
The road infrastructure, again, we have made major gains. If you look at the main feeder roads that we were talking about a few years ago, Maimahio to Narok to Sekenani Gate, they are done. The Mount Narok route, Voi to Tabeta, Mombasa to Malindi. Right now, there is the Mombasa to Malindi through Bombolulu is actually being expanded into a dual carriageway from Vipingo all the way to Kilifi. Save for a very short distance between Mavueni and Kilifi is all done. You have the Kaloleni Road that goes through Mavueni and comes out at Moi International Airport at the back there at the SGR. And you have the Dongokundu bypass, which is complete. Now you can drive from Mombasa Airport and also from SGR, the final stop at Miritini. You can drive all the way to Diani, and it takes you about 40 minutes at most. There's a Samburu Road that hits from, if you're traveling down towards Mombasa, 90 kilometers past Voi, you get to Samburu. That road takes you to a place known as Kinango in Kwale County. And from Samburu to Kinango is full tarmac now. It's a full road. So we are now asking the government to look at just that short distance between Kinango and Ukunda, so that you're able to drive from Nairobi to Mombasa. The main one, Nairobi-Nakuru, we need a dual. We need a dual carriageway there, and if we can extend it all the way to Kisumu, that would really help. Yeah.
So those are the main roads.
Those are the main roads. I mean, I've not even mentioned the northern circuit, where now we are having from Kenol up to the junction of Nyeri, the Maroa place, dualed. From there, going upwards all the way to Meru. All the roads are good, going towards Isiolo and Samburu and Shaba, up to the northern circuit, up to Turkana. We have good roads.
Right.
So all we need to do is now ensure that they are maintained regularly so that we don't lose them.
Maintenance is very important. The CS for Tourism has been doing rounds across the country to map out potential tourism sites, especially in the counties that are yet to be tapped. How is the industry, specifically where you sit, how is it preparing to support these new sites that are being discovered?
This is something that we did at the advent of devolution. We had what we called the tourism network. It was an initiative under our umbrella body, Kenya Tourism Federation, where we actually went to every county and tried to map out what do they have, what are their advantages. And in some areas, we suggested that counties get together. If you look at the counties, what we call the Western Bloc, from South Nyanza, coming all the way to Kakamega, going towards Mumias, and going towards Busia and Kisumu itself. We have what is known now as the Lake Victoria tourism circuit. So it encompasses all those, and you have complementary products. What you have in Kisumu, you might not get in Kakamega, you might not get in Bungoma, and you might not get in Kisii. Coming to the Rift, there was a North Rift a tourism body formed, NOREB, putting together the Rift counties, Nyandarua, and so on and so forth. We went to Coast. You remember the Jumuiya ya Counties of Pwani, an initiative again by the tourism industry. At that time was led by Governor Joho and Governor Kingi. and Governor Mvurya when he was in Kwale. So it's something that we've done. We've actually gone out and even mapped out the tourism products that are there. So all we need to do now is get the counties to highlight them and we sell them together.
Right.
Yeah.
Classification of hotels.
Yes.
There is an exercise that is going on.
Yes.
To classify them and, I don't know, standardize, so to say.
Yes.
How is this going to help the industry?
The classification is a very good tool for marketing because it gives you a semblance of the quality that you would expect when you visit a destination. So we've always had classification in Kenya. The only thing is that it's a national classification, so it takes time to undertake. It requires a lot of facilitation, particularly in financial resources. Then, when the East Africa community came together, first of all, the 3 states, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, the original East African states, decided that we need to standardize our product. You need to be in a 5-star hotel in Kisumu, should be the same as a 5-star hotel in Tanga or in Jinja in Uganda. Then, of course, the other countries came along. We have Rwanda now, we have Burundi, we have Somalia, which is a new entrant, we have South Sudan, Ethiopia, now we have DRC. So what I can foresee happening is that the countries that are ready, because we've reviewed the classification criteria, we've made it a bit easier. Before the criteria was quite long and tedious. It's a bit easier now. We are taking care of products that did not exist when the original criteria was mooted, and these are the Airbnbs. So that criteria, that the Airbnbs will also be taken care of. So it's something that we do need to do. The only trick is that we need to do it. A challenge is that we need to do it regularly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as we classify the EAC facilities, is this going to be in tandem with the international classification as well?
Our criteria is actually quite thorough. In some instances, we find it even more thorough than some of our source markets out there. Okay. But mainly because within the source markets, there are other developments within the source markets. For example, access. You find that in the source markets you have speed trains, you have public transport networks that assist you there. You have environmental laws that are easy to adapt to because the back end of the infrastructure by government is taken care of. But yes, we will be able to compete internationally. It's an international standard criteria that we should follow.
Great, that is great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the human resource in the industry, in the hospitality industry.
Yes.
We know that Kenya has one of the best training grounds and one of the best personnel.
Yes.
How do we compete globally in terms of HR?
From the point of view of hospitality and tourism, we are way ahead. You go to Dubai, a place like Jumeirah Beach, the Palm, majority of the employees are Kenyans. You go to Qatar at the airport, majority are Kenyans. The people who are working in hotels, they are Kenyans. It means that then we are doing something right here to be able to supply human resources out there. The island of Jersey of the UK. In the US, most of the resorts, in fact, I was surprised. There is one time we had gone, it's a long time ago, we had gone to New York and we were staying in New Jersey. And the lady who drove us from New York to New Jersey was a Kenyan lady from Kisii. So we are supplying human resources out into the world. What we need to do is avail those jobs locally so that we are able to compete even from a compensation point of view, and we are not, so that we don't lose out too much. Because at the end of the day, if you're able to supply those jobs here, then the skills would remain here and the development would happen here locally. So we need to look at a model of economic growth that gives a lot more compensation to our employees than we are at the moment. On the flip side, we have the highest ratio of employee. We are very labor intensive. So 40% of our revenue goes to payroll and related. It's huge when you look at other sectors that have gone digital, like banks. They are able to achieve a ratio of about 4 to 6%. So what does that tell you? It tells you that there's still a lot of a requirement for labor in our industry. So what we need to do is make sure we get more investments and we are able to employ more people. Yeah.
Before we close the conversation, let's talk about domestic tourism. I know that this particular sector has grown over the years.
Yes.
What are we doing to ensure that we keep the local tourists, visiting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our domestic agenda, you recall, when the last time I was here, I said we started in 2008. We put together a domestic tourism strategy under the Ministry of Tourism. In fact, at that time, the minister, as they were known, came to us and told us, we don't have money to put this strategy together. So find us volunteers. So they gave us some officers and we put together a team of volunteers and we set out with a strategy post 2008. And that strategy is what the Tourism Board was following. And we continued promoting. Even now we have core promotions, and you will see in a few days KTB launching the Tembea Kenya campaign, which we do together. We supply hotel rooms, some people supply transport, others supply airline, and we do a promotion either on radio or on TV. And we went on this campaign and the response was always around 20-30% of the total numbers. Now, the best thing to have happened to our domestic tourism was COVID, because after lockdown, everybody sort of like had these campaigns that we'd been running for years on end without a response, and they responded. So now, the domestic and regional, if you look at the numbers right now, Kenyan travelers, Ugandan and Tanzanian, and lump them together, they are a bigger market than any external source market. So what does that tell us? It tells us that there's huge potential. We still need to continue speaking to our domestic market. We need to continue encouraging them to visit. And now we are seeing different patterns. While before we were seeing travel in the holiday seasons of April, August and December, we are now seeing some off-holiday travel where people just take weekends out. They go visit a place like Nanyuki and then come back. So we've got to continue with this promo. We cannot ignore that market. It's very big. In fact, if we are able to command 50% of our tourism from domestic, that would give us a base. Then the rest would now just come to fill up.
Right. So as we now close the conversation, I'll give you 30 seconds. Just give us your closing remarks. What is the way forward for the industry?
We are seeing growth. That is what we are forecasting. At our symposium last week, we reviewed the last 20 years. Where were we when we started this symposium 20 years ago? Where are we now? And where do we need to go? And the decision was that even from a strategic point of view, we should do away with these 5-year strategy cycles. We need to look further. So our symposium was actually themed the next 20. What do we need in the next 20 years? If, say, for example, you need a light rail or an underground train system, is that something that you can achieve on a 5-year cycle strategy? Maybe not. So we are now looking at what we can do. Interestingly enough, we discussed the role of Gen Zs because the next 20 years, they'll be the ones now running the show. They'll have moved from being 20-something-year-olds to 40-something and 50. They'll be the ones taking over the business. There'll be a new crop of whatever name they'll be given, whether it'll be Alpha again, going back to the alphabet. But we discussed a lot about the role of Gen Zs. And we employ around 80% of them. In our hotels, if you walk into any hotel, just look at the number of young people who are serving there. The young cooks, the young housekeepers, the young waiters, the young managers that are running the show. So we actually had to discuss, how do we bring them in? How do we deal with them? And then, of course, the role of artificial intelligence. Within the next 20 years,
the new frontier.
We need, as a country, to stop thinking 5 years. We need to stop thinking 1 year. In fact, these budget cycles, finance bills of 1 year are not sustainable. We need to be thinking, in some instances, 4 to 5 year plans of financing.
Awesome. Thank you very much for speaking with us. I have been speaking with Mike Macharia, who is the CEO of the Kenya Association of Hotel Keepers and Caterers, just taking stock of where the industry is at and where they are going. He says 20-year plan, not 5, not 1, but 20. Well, that is where we close business this evening. Sports news is coming up with Daniel Wahome. Do stay tuned.
When are you ever going to stop?
Surely you are not one to doubt the repercussions?
You need to get back to the ring. Kaikara has not yet won.
Did he grow weak or something?
It's time to show Kaikara Joy left her man here.
We'll create a small scandal.
Hello?
Just follow my instructions. Take good care of them.
The only problem I have is you driving that agenda to achieve something. Shame on you.
Pressure babangu inapanda daily. I want to end this once and for all.
What are you doing here? Talk about. Kwenda kabisa.
Welcome to Prime Edition Sport. Now, the Harambee Stars have been drawn in Group J of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers following the draw that was conducted today in Johannesburg, South Africa. Kenya will battle it out with 5-time AFCON winners, the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon, Namibia and Zimbabwe, in the qualifiers that are set to begin in September this year. The 2025 AFCON finals are slated for Morocco from the 21st of December 2025 to the 18th of January 2026.
Gabon.
Kenya.
Kenya in Group J.
Kenya will face 5-time winner Cameroon, Namibia and Zimbabwe in Group B of the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, whose qualifiers begin in September. Kenya will be hoping to qualify for their first AFCON final since 2019 in Egypt. Defending champions Ivory Coast are pooled in Group G alongside Zambia, Sierra Leone and Chad. Hosts Morocco will play Gabon, Central African Republic and Lesotho in Group B. 48 teams were divided into 12 groups of 4 teams, Group A to L, where the first and runners-up in the 11 groups that do not involve tournament host Morocco will gain qualification to the competition. The qualification matches are scheduled to begin in September, October and November, where at the conclusion of the group stage matches, 24 teams will qualify for the 35th edition of the Africa Cup of Nations, scheduled for December 21st, 2025 to January 18th, 2026 in Morocco.
And the Kenya women's volleyball team, the Malkia Strikers, have been eliminated from the FIVB Women's Volleyball Challenger Cup after they lost in straight sets to Puerto Rico in the quarterfinal match played in Manila, the Philippines. Kenya lost the first set 25-20, and despite mounting a comeback, they lost the second set 25-19. Olympic-bound Malkia Strikers began the third set with optimism and took the lead for the first time when they had a lead of 12-8, but Puerto Rico rallied from behind to level the score 19-all before winning 27-25. Following the loss, Kenya exit the knockout tournament at the same stage again after Colombia upset them in the previous edition. Kenya, under the tutelage of Japhet Munala, now switch their focus to the forthcoming Olympic Games, where they are expected to come back home before heading to Miramas, southern France, for intensified training in Paris. Kenya will play the Tokyo 2020 silver medalist Brazil, Poland and Japan in Group B. They opened their campaign against Brazil on the 29th of July before facing Poland 2 days later, and then wind up their group campaign against Japan on the 3rd of August at the South Paris Arena. And now the Kenya tennis queen Angela Okutoi will not be featuring at the Paris Olympic Games as highly anticipated. Okutoi needed to beat the 400 mark according to the selection criteria, but her ranking stands at 495. Tennis Kenya had lobbied for her to be considered on the universality slot, but it was not to be, according to the entries released for the Olympics by the International Tennis Federation. An emotional Angela Okutoi, who is an African champion, said she had given it all to qualify for her first Olympic Games, but was hopeful that it works out during the next Olympics in 2028. The men's and women's singles entries are headed by top seeds Yannick Sinner of Italy, Novak Djokovic of Serbia, Carlos Alcaraz of Spain, Iga Swiatek of Poland, and Coco Gauff of the USA. The Olympic tennis tournament will be held on clay courts at the Roland Garros Stadium in Paris over 9 days, from Saturday the 27th of July to the 4th of August. And now two European juggernauts, Spain and Germany, will meet on Friday evening in the quarterfinals of the European Championships in the quest for an unprecedented fourth Euro title at the MHP Arena in Stuttgart. The winners of this eagerly awaited match will face the winners of the last day tie between Portugal and France in the semi-finals.
Groups dating all the way back to 1934. Hosts Germany, who are playing in a record 14th Euro on the other hand,
And that's the sport for tonight. Thank you for being with us on Prime Edition Sport. My name is Daniel Wahome. Back to you, Betty.
And that is all the news we had for you this evening. Thank you very much for keeping us company and watching. Remember, you can always interact with us on Twitter. We are at KBC Channel 1, my personal Twitter handle, at Betty Kiptum. On behalf of Brian Muraro, the sign language interpreter, and the rest of the team that made this possible, we do wish you a good night. Bye-bye.
WASREB, we are committed to ensuring top quality water services.
Small
Pieces
so that it will be easy to blend.
Oh, we're going to blend the pineapples.
For it to get the juice.
Okay.
So we'll give the chicken some time to brown, and then we'll turn to the others.
WASREB, celebrating 20 years of water services.